Chapter 1. The mountain air tasted like iron and shame. Sarah's lungs burned as she stumbled through the ancient forest, her ceremonial gown, white silk, now torn and mud-stained, clinging to her trembling body like a second skin of failure. Behind her, the drums still echoed. The mating ritual drums, the ones that had been beating for 3 days straight, calling every unmated wolf in the 5 kingdoms to the sacred gathering. The ones she'd just run from, because she'd done the unthinkable. Her bare feet slipped on wet leaves, and she caught herself against a tree trunk, gasping. The bark bit into her palms, but the pain was nothing compared to the humiliation still scorching through her veins. She could still hear them, the gasps, the whispers that had rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Could still feel 1,000 eyes on her, as she'd committed the most embarrassing act in werewolf history. She'd fallen asleep. In his arms, during the climax of the mating ritual, in front of the entire kingdom. Not just any arms, the Alpha King's arms. A sob tried to claw its way up her throat, but she swallowed it down. Crying wouldn't change what happened. Wouldn't erase the shock on King Daemon's face when her body had simply given out. Wouldn't silence the scandalized shrieks of the High Council or the mocking laughter of Lydia Ashcroft, the she-wolf everyone expected him to choose. The forest grew darker as Sarah pushed deeper into its embrace, away from the ceremonial grounds, away from the capital, away from everything. Fog rolled between the trees like ghostly fingers reaching for her, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. Of course it was. Even the sky wanted to punish her. Her wolf whimpered inside her mind. A soft, pathetic sound that made Sarah's chest ache. "I'm sorry," her wolf whispered. "I'm so sorry. I couldn't stay awake. Something's wrong with us." "I know," Sarah breathed into the darkness. "I know something's wrong." There had always been something wrong with her. Since childhood, she'd been different, weaker. While other young wolves could shift at 13, she'd barely managed her first transformation at 16. While others grew strong and vibrant under the full moon, she grew tired, exhausted, as if some invisible force was constantly draining the life from her bones. The healers called it a constitutional weakness. The elders called it unfortunate. Her own father had called it an embarrassment to the Moonvale Pack. But this? Falling asleep during the most sacred ceremony in their world, in the arms of the most powerful alpha alive, after he'd chosen her from among hundreds of eligible she-wolves? This was beyond embarrassment. This was catastrophic. Sarah's vision blurred with unshed tears as she navigated through the thickening fog. She had no plan, no destination. Just the desperate, animal need to run, to hide, to disappear before they came for her, because they would come. The king's guards, the council, maybe even him. The memory flashed through her mind unbidden, sharp and mortifying. The Alpha King had descended from his throne as the drums reached their crescendo. Every unmated female had stood in a perfect circle, dressed in white, hearts pounding, hoping to be chosen as his queen. Sarah had been near the back, practically invisible, never expecting, never even dreaming that his gold eyes would find her, that he would walk past Lydia with her perfect posture and noble bloodline, past Cecily with her warrior strength, past all of them, to her. "You," he'd said, his voice deep as midnight. "What's your name?" "Sarah Moonvale, Your Majesty." Her voice had barely been a whisper. He'd extended his hand, and when she'd taken it, electricity had shot through her entire body. The crowd had erupted in confused murmurs. The king had pulled her close, one arm wrapping around her waist, the other lifting her hand to his chest, where she could feel his heart beating strong, steady, alive. The ritual demanded they stand together until the final drum beat. 20 minutes of connection, of the pack bonds forming, of the magic weaving between chosen mates. Sarah had lasted maybe 5. Her eyelids had grown heavy, her body had swayed, and despite every desperate internal scream, despite her wolf's frantic attempts to keep her conscious, despite the sheer horror of what was happening, she'd fallen asleep standing up, her head dropping against his chest, her full weight collapsing into his arms. The drums had stopped. The silence had been deafening. Now, somewhere behind her, branches snapped. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving fast. Spread out. She couldn't have gone far. Guards. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. She forced her exhausted body into motion again, veering left, then right, no longer sure which direction she was heading. The fog was so thick now she could barely see 3 feet ahead. Rain began to fall cold, stinging drops that soaked through what remained of her dress. Please, she begged silently. Please just let me disappear. Her foot caught on an exposed root, and this time, she went down hard. Pain exploded through her knee. She bit her lip to keep from crying out, tasting blood. Behind her, the footsteps grew louder, closer. She couldn't run anymore. Her body simply wouldn't obey. Sarah dragged herself behind a massive oak tree, pressing her back against it, making herself as small as possible. Maybe in this fog, in this darkness, they'd miss her. Maybe the earth would just open up and swallow her whole, save her from whatever punishment awaited. The footsteps slowed, stopped. She's close, a gruff voice said. I can smell her fear. Sarah held her breath, squeezed her eyes shut. Her whole body shook from cold, from exhaustion, from pure terror. What would they do to her? Exile? Imprisonment? Execution for insulting the king? Whatever it was, she deserved it. The rain fell harder, the fog pressed in. And somewhere deep inside her chest, beneath the fear and shame, something else stirred. Something that had been sleeping her whole life. Something that whispered in a voice not quite her own. Soon, very soon now, everything changes. But Sarah didn't have time to wonder what that meant, because a hand suddenly gripped her shoulder, spinning her around. She opened her mouth to scream, but the scream died in her throat, because the man standing before her, rain streaming down his face, gold eyes blazing even in the darkness, wasn't a guard at all. It was him. The Alpha King had found her. Have you ever embarrassed yourself so badly you wanted to disappear forever? Have you ever felt like your body was betraying you, failing you when you needed it most? If Sarah's story is already pulling at something deep inside you, then you're in the right place. This is just the beginning. Hit that subscribe button for Clarissa Romance Collections if you haven't, because here, we don't just tell stories, we pour them straight into your soul. And trust me, you're going to want to know what happens when she looks into those gold eyes and realizes running was never an option. Chapter 2. Sarah's back hit the tree trunk as she scrambled away from him, her breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. The Alpha King stood before her like something out of a nightmare, and a dream twisted together, towering, drenched, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, those impossible gold eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her feel like she was burning alive. Don't run from me again. His voice was low, commanding, but there was something else underneath it. Something that sounded almost like concern? No, that couldn't be right. Your Majesty, Sarah's voice broke. She pressed harder against the tree, wishing she could melt into it, become part of the bark and roots and disappear forever. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I never meant to do. Stop. He took a step closer, and Sarah flinched. But he didn't reach for her. Instead, he shrugged off his ceremonial cloak, heavy black velvet embroidered with silver wolf designs, and held it out to her. You're freezing. She stared at the cloak like it might bite her. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. He was supposed to be furious, supposed to have her arrested, or rejected, or worse. But instead he was offering her his cloak? I don't understand, she whispered. You're in shock. And you're about 3 minutes away from hypothermia. His jaw tightened. Take the damn cloak, Sarah. The sound of her name on his lips did something strange to her insides. She reached out with trembling hands and accepted the cloak, pulling it around her shoulders. It was still warm from his body, and it smelled like pine and smoke and something wild she couldn't name. Despite everything, her wolf practically purred at the scent. Mate, her wolf whispered dreamily. He smells like mate. Sarah shoved that thought down hard. There was no way. She'd ruined everything. Why are you here? She managed to ask. Why aren't you sending the guards to drag me back in chains or something? A muscle in his jaw twitched. Is that what you think I'd do? I humiliated you. In front of the entire kingdom. During the most sacred ceremony we have. Her voice cracked. I humiliated myself. I fell asleep. What kind of wolf falls asleep during their own mating ritual? One who's been poisoned. The words hung in the air between them like a blade. Sarah's mind went blank. What? King Damon moved closer, and this time she couldn't back away. He was right in front of her now. So close, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Rain ran down his face, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His gaze traveled over her features with an intensity that made her skin tingle. I've been watching you, Sarah Moonvale. His voice was rough, almost angry. For 3 months, since the moment you arrived in the capital with your pack for the pre-ritual ceremonies, do you know what I noticed? She shook her head mutely. You're always exhausted. You struggle to keep up during the physical trials. You fall behind in the group runs. The other she-wolves whisper about your weakness. His eyes flashed. But I also noticed that you're kind to the Omega servants everyone else ignores. That you have a mind sharp enough to debate philosophy with the scholars. That when you think no one's looking, there's a light in your eyes that suggests you're capable of so much more than anyone gives you credit for. Sarah's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. You've been watching me? Every day. He said it like a confession, like it cost him something to admit. And tonight, when I chose you, I saw the panic in your eyes, the disbelief, but I also saw the exact moment your body started to fail you. It wasn't natural, Sarah. The way you collapsed wasn't exhaustion. It was like someone had pulled a plug and drained every ounce of energy from your body in seconds. But who would? She stopped, her breath catching. Images flashed through her mind. Lydia Ashcroft's smug smile. The drink one of the attendants had given her right before the ritual. The wine. The ceremonial wine, Damon confirmed grimly. I had my healer examine what was left in your cup while everyone was distracted by your exit. Shadowroot extract. A rare poison that doesn't kill it, just puts the victim into an uncontrollable sleep. Nearly impossible to detect. The world tilted. Sarah's knees buckled, but before she could fall, strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her against a solid chest. The same position she'd been in during the ritual. But this time, she was wide awake to feel every point of contact, every place where his body pressed against hers. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. I'm not letting you fall. Something inside Sarah's chest cracked open. All the fear, all the shame, all the years of being told she was weak and broken and not enough. It all came pouring out in a sob that she couldn't hold back anymore. They poisoned me, she choked out. Someone wanted me to fail, to embarrass you, to ensure I wouldn't choose you. Damon finished quietly. His arms tightened around her. Which means someone perceived you as a threat. Someone was afraid of what might happen if I claimed you as my mate. Sarah pulled back just enough to look up at him, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. But why? I'm nobody. Just a weak wolf from a minor pack. There were dozens of better choices. Stronger, more beautiful, more controllable, he interrupted, his eyes blazing. More predictable, more willing to be a decorative queen who smiles and nods and never questions anything. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tears with surprising gentleness. I don't want controllable, Sarah. I want real. The breath left her lungs. Up close like this, she could see that his eyes weren't just gold, they had flecks of amber and bronze, like molten metal. She could see the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, barely visible. Could see the way his gaze dropped to her lips for just a fraction of a second before snapping back up. You don't even know me, she whispered. Then let me. His voice was rough, almost pleading. Let me prove to you that choosing you wasn't a mistake. That falling asleep in my arms, poison or not, wasn't the disaster you think it was. The kingdom will never accept me. The council answers to me. Something dangerous flickered across his features. And the kingdom will learn to accept what I've chosen. What I'm choosing right now, in this forest, with no ceremony or witnesses. His forehead pressed against hers, and Sarah's entire world narrowed to the feeling of his breath on her lips. I'm choosing you, Sarah, not because of tradition or bloodlines or politics. but because when I held you in my arms tonight, even as you fell unconscious, even as the entire court gasped in horror, I felt something I've never felt in my entire life. What? The word was barely a breath. Peace. Something shifted in the air between them. Sarah felt it like a physical presence, warm and electric and terrifying. Her wolf was no longer whimpering. She was alert, focused, pressing forward with an urgency Sarah had never experienced before. He's ours, her wolf said with absolute certainty. He's always been ours. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. I'm scared I'll keep failing you, that whatever's wrong with me, poison or not, will make me a terrible queen. That Hey. His hand slid from her face to the back of her neck, grounding her. I'm scared too. I'm scared of what I felt the moment I saw you. I'm scared of how much I want to find whoever poisoned you and tear them apart with my bare hands. I'm scared that you'll wake up tomorrow and realize you deserve better than a king with more enemies than friends and a kingdom on the brink of war. War? Sarah's eyes widened. His expression darkened. There's so much I need to tell you. So much you need to know about what you've walked into. But not here. Not now. He glanced over his shoulder, and Sarah heard what he was hearing: distant voices, the guards still searching. We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere we can figure out who did this and why. Where? A ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first she'd seen from him. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger, less burdened. Do you trust me? It was an insane question. She'd known him for all of maybe 30 minutes total. She should say no, should demand to go back to her pack, to hide in her father's house, to forget this entire nightmare had ever happened. But when she looked into those gold eyes, she didn't see a stranger. She saw something ancient and familiar, like a memory from a dream she couldn't quite recall. I trust you, she heard herself say. The smile widened just a fraction. Then hold on tight. Before Sarah could ask what he meant, Damon swept her up into his arms properly this time, one arm under her knees, the other around her back. She gasped, and instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. Your Majesty. Damon, he corrected, his eyes glinting with something that might have been amusement. If you're going to be my queen, you're going to have to start using my name. I haven't agreed to be your queen, she protested weakly. Not yet. His grin turned wolfish. But you will. And then he shifted. Not completely, just enough that his strength multiplied. His eyes blazed brighter, his features sharpened. He took off running through the forest at a speed that should have been impossible, even for a werewolf. Trees blurred past. The rain became streaks of silver. Sarah buried her face against his chest and held on, her heart pounding with terror and exhilaration in equal measure. She'd woken up this morning expecting nothing. Expecting to stand in the back of the ceremony circle and be invisible, as always. Expecting to return home afterward and continue her quiet, unremarkable life. Instead, she'd been chosen by a king, poisoned by an enemy, and now she was racing through an ancient forest in the arms of the most powerful alpha alive, heading toward a future she couldn't begin to imagine. Her wolf hummed contentedly, finally at peace. This, her wolf whispered, is where we were always meant to be. Sarah wasn't sure she believed that yet, but wrapped in Damon's arms, surrounded by his scent, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek, she thought maybe, just maybe, she could learn to. The question was, would the kingdom let her? Chapter 3. The safe house was nothing like Sarah expected. It wasn't a house at all, actually. It was a cave, but not the damp, cold kind from horror stories. This one was carved into the side of a mountain, its entrance hidden behind a waterfall that glowed faintly silver in the moonlight. Inside, the walls were smooth obsidian that reflected firelight from strategically placed torches. Furs covered the stone floor. A small hot spring bubbled in the corner, steam rising in delicate curls. It's beautiful, Sarah breathed as Damon set her down gently. It's secret, he corrected, moving to light more torches. Only 3 people in the kingdom know about this place. 4, now. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. The kings of my line have used it for centuries when they needed to escape the palace. To think. To hide. The way he said that last word made Sarah's chest ache. She watched him move through the space with practiced ease. And suddenly she saw it, the loneliness carved into every line of his body. This powerful, commanding alpha who had an entire kingdom at his feet was completely alone. "Damon," she said softly. He froze, his back to her. "You should rest. There are clean clothes in that chest. The spring water is always warm." Why did you really choose me?" The question hung in the air. Slowly, Damon turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his eyes nearly broke her. "Because you're the first person who's looked at me in 10 years and seen someone worth saving instead of someone worth using." Sarah's breath caught. Before she could respond, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "Do you know what it's like, Sarah? To wear a crown and know that every smile directed at you is calculating your worth? Every touch is measuring your power? Every word of devotion is really a negotiation?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have advisors who want to control me. Nobles who want to marry into my bloodline. Warriors who want to ride my strength to glory. But none of them, not one, has ever looked at me the way you did tonight." "How did I look at you?" she whispered. "Like you were terrified of disappointing me. Not of losing power or status or political advantage. Of disappointing me." His eyes blazed. "Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Sarah wrapped his cloak tighter around herself, her mind spinning. She wanted to tell him he was wrong. That she wasn't special. That she was just a broken wolf who couldn't even stay conscious through her own mating ritual. But the memories were already rising, unbidden and unwelcome. "She's defective," her father had said when she was 13 and still hadn't shifted. "The Moonvale line has never produced a wolf this weak." "Maybe she's human," her older brother had sneered. "Maybe Mother had an affair with a human and lied about it." "Don't say that," her mother had whispered, but her eyes had been full of shame. Shame that her daughter was an embarrassment, a disappointment, a stain on the family name. Sarah closed her eyes against the sting of tears. "You don't know me, Damon. You don't know what I am." "Then tell me." She looked up to find him standing closer, his expression intense but patient. Waiting. And maybe it was the exhaustion, or the poison still working through her system, or the simple fact that she was so tired of carrying this alone, but the words started spilling out. "I'm broken," she said flatly. "I've always been broken. I didn't shift until I was 16, 3 years later than everyone else. When I finally did, my wolf was small. Weak. I can barely hold my shifted form for more than an hour before I collapse." Her voice cracked. "Every full moon, while the rest of my pack runs wild and free, I'm in my room, fighting to stay conscious. Every hunt, every run, every ceremony, I'm the one lagging behind. The one who needs help. The one everyone whispers about." Damon's jaw clenched, but he didn't interrupt. "My father stopped looking at me years ago. Just straight through me, like I wasn't there. My brother told me I should reject the ritual invitation, that I'd only embarrass the family by showing up. Even the Omegas pity me." She laughed bitterly. "And you know what the worst part is? I thought maybe, just maybe, if I came to the capital, if I participated in the ritual, someone might see past the weakness, might see that I'm more than just a defective wolf. But instead you were poisoned by someone who saw exactly how much more you are," Damon finished quietly. "And they were terrified of it." Sarah shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. I'm nobody. I have no power, no status, nothing that would threaten." "You're wrong." He moved closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "There's something inside you, Sarah. Something that's been suppressed or hidden or locked away. I felt it the moment I touched you during the ritual. Right before you fell asleep for just a second, your power flared." "I don't have power," she protested. Your eyes changed color. Sarah's heart stopped. "What?" "Just for a moment. Right when I took your hand. Your eyes, they're brown, beautiful and warm. But for 1 second, they flashed silver. Pure, bright silver, like moonlight given form." His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "And I felt something awaken. Something ancient and vast and absolutely terrified. No, that wasn't possible." Sarah would have known, would have felt. But even as she formed the denial, a memory surfaced. One she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself it was a dream. She was 7 years old, crying in the forest because the older pups had mocked her again, called her weak, called her worthless, and she'd screamed just once, just a burst of pure childhood rage and pain. The entire forest had gone silent. Every bird stopped singing, every insect ceased its buzzing, even the wind had died, and for 3 heartbeats, Sarah had felt something enormous rising inside her chest, something bright and fierce and powerful. Then her mother had found her, had grabbed her shoulders, eyes wide with panic. "Never do that again," she'd hissed. "Never. Do you understand me, Sarah? Never." "But what did I?" "Never." Her mother's voice had broken. "If they find out what you are, they'll kill you. Or worse. So you bury it, deep as you can, and you never let it surface. Promise me." And 7-year-old Sarah, terrified of her mother's fear more than anything else, had promised. "Oh gods," Sarah whispered now, her knees buckling. Damon caught her, lowering them both to the furs on the floor. He held her as the realization crashed through her like a wave. "What did your mother mean?" he asked gently. "When she told you to bury it?" "I don't know." Sarah's voice was shaking. "I was 7. I thought I'd imagined it. Thought it was just a child's fantasy that maybe I was special. Maybe I was powerful. Maybe I wasn't broken after all." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I am broken, Damon. Whatever that moment was, it never happened again. I've been weak and useless ever since. Or," Damon said slowly, "you've been suppressed. Deliberately kept weak to hide something that someone, maybe your mother, maybe your whole pack, was terrified others would discover." The implication hung in the air like smoke. But why? Sarah's mind was racing. Why would they do that? Why would my own family cripple me? "To protect you." His voice was certain. "Your mother's exact words were, 'If they find out what you are, they'll kill you.' Which means, whatever power you carry, it's the kind that gets people killed, the kind that threatens the established order." Sarah pulled back to look at him, her heart pounding. "What kind of power does that?" Damon's expression was grave. "The kind mentioned in the old prophecies. The kind that hasn't been seen in over 200 years. He paused, seeming to weigh his words. "Tell me, Sarah, has anyone ever told you about the silver flame?" The words sent a chill down her spine. "The myth? About the wolf blessed by the moon goddess herself?" "Not a myth." Damon's eyes were blazing now. "A bloodline. One that disappeared centuries ago after the Great Purge. The silver flames were wolves who could channel the goddess's power, directly heal the dying, speak to the dead, see the future, even control other wolves with their will. They were revered, worshipped, and eventually feared. What happened to them? The false council happened." His voice turned dark. "A group of corrupt alphas who decided that kind of power was too dangerous to exist. They hunted every silver flame they could find, killed them, burned the bodies, erased the records. By the time my great-grandfather took the throne, everyone believed the bloodline was extinct." Sarah's hands were trembling. "You think I'm... But that's impossible. My family is nobody special. We're just a minor pack, or a pack that's been hiding one of the most powerful bloodlines in wolf history for 200 years. Damon's hand tightened on hers. "Think about it, Sarah. Your weakness that keeps you on the edge of consciousness. What if it's not weakness at all? What if it's power, massive, uncontrolled power constantly trying to surface, and someone's been drugging you to keep it suppressed?" The cave spun. "Drugging me? The wine tonight wasn't the first time you've been poisoned. I'd stake my crown on it." His jaw clenched. "Small doses, regular enough to keep you docile and tired, probably mixed into your food or water. Something that wouldn't kill you, just contain you." Every piece suddenly clicked into place. The exhaustion that never went away. The way she always felt like she was moving through fog. The strange dreams she'd had her whole life, dreams of silver light and ancient voices calling her name. Her mother's panic whenever Sarah showed even a hint of strength or defiance. "My own family has been poisoning me," she whispered. "My entire life." "To save you," Damon said firmly. however misguided. I believe they did it to save you. Because if word got out that a silver flame still existed, if the council found out, they'd kill me. They'd try." His voice turned fierce. "But they'd have to go through me first." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd chosen her out of hundreds, who'd chased her into a storm, who was now offering to stand between her and an entire corrupt council. And she realized something that terrified her more than any prophecy or hidden power. She was starting to believe him, starting to trust him, starting to fall for him. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Chapter 4. Dawn broke over the mountains in shades of gold and rose, but Sarah barely noticed. She'd spent the night curled on the furs, drifting in and out of consciousness while Damon kept watch. No nightmares had come for the first time in years. Just deep, dreamless sleep that her body had been craving for what felt like forever. When she finally opened her eyes, he was there, sitting cross-legged near the cave entrance, his profile sharp against the morning light, lost in thought. "You didn't sleep," she said, her voice rough. He turned, and the intensity in his gold eyes made her breath catch. "Couldn't. Too many things to figure out." He stood, moving toward her with that predatory grace all alphas had, but his was different, controlled, purposeful. "How do you feel?" Sarah sat up slowly, taking inventory. The bone-deep exhaustion she'd carried for years felt lighter. Not gone, but diminished. Like someone had removed a weight she'd stopped noticing. "Better. Different." She met his gaze. "The poison's wearing off, isn't it? Whatever they've been giving me." "Probably." He crouched beside her, studying her face. "Your color's better. Your eyes are clearer. And there's something else." He reached out, hesitating just before touching her. "May I?" She nodded. His fingers brushed her temple, and electricity shot through her entire body. Sarah gasped. It wasn't painful, it was like coming alive, like every nerve ending had been asleep and was suddenly, violently awake. "There," Damon breathed. "Do you feel that?" "What is it?" "Power. Your power. It's starting to wake up." His hand dropped, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "We need to take you somewhere. Somewhere that might give us answers about what you truly are." "Where?" "The Temple of First Light." Sarah's blood ran cold. Every wolf knew about the temple. It was sacred ground, forbidden to all but the high priestess and the royal family. Legend said it was the place where the moon goddess herself had first blessed the wolves, turning humans into something more, something divine. "We can't just walk into the temple," she protested. I'm the Alpha King," Damon said simply. "I can go wherever I want, and you're coming with me." 2 hours later, they stood before gates that looked carved from starlight itself. The Temple of First Light sat at the peak of the sacred mountain, accessible only by a narrow path that wound through clouds and mist. The structure was ancient, older than any kingdom, older than recorded history. Its walls were made of a white stone that seemed to glow from within, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they were written in condensed moonlight. Sarah's wolf was going crazy inside her mind, pacing and whimpering and pawing at the barriers of her consciousness. "Home," her wolf kept repeating. "Home, home, home." "Have you been here before?" Damon asked quietly. "Never." But even as she said it, Sarah knew it was a lie. Not a conscious one, she'd never physically stood in this place. But something deep inside her recognized it, remembered it, like a soul memory from a life she'd never lived. Damon pushed open the gates. The sound they made was like a song, pure and resonant, vibrating through Sarah's bones. Inside, the temple was a single vast chamber open to the sky. The floor was polished obsidian, reflecting clouds. In the center stood an altar carved from the same white stone as the walls, and behind it, Sarah's knees buckled. It was a statue, 20 feet tall, carved with impossible detail. A she-wolf in human form, arms raised to the sky, mouth open in what could have been a song or a scream, and from her chest, carved in silver that somehow remained bright after centuries, was a flame. "The first silver flame," Damon said softly, his hand steadying her. "The moon goddess's chosen daughter. The one who started it all." Sarah couldn't look away. The statue's face was beautiful and terrible, wise and young, familiar and completely foreign. And carved into the base were words in the old language, words that Sarah shouldn't be able to read, had never studied, didn't know. But she read them anyway. "When the silver flame burns again," she whispered, translating without thinking. "The false shall fall, and the true shall rise. In the hour of greatest darkness, she will return, the one who sleeps in shadow, the one who dreams in fire, and she will either save us all," her voice broke, "or burn the world to ash." Silence filled the temple like a living thing. "How did you read that?" Damon's voice was strained. "I don't know." Sarah's hands were shaking. "I've never learned the old language. I shouldn't be able to." A sound echoed through the chamber. Footsteps. Both of them spun to see a figure emerging from the shadows behind the altar. An elderly woman, bent with age, wearing robes of deepest midnight blue. Her eyes were white, completely white, like she'd been blind for decades. But when she looked at Sarah, she saw everything. "Finally," the old woman breathed, "after 200 years of waiting. Finally, you've come home." Sarah's heart was hammering. "Who are you?" "I am Keeper Nyx, the last high priestess, the last one who remembers." She moved closer, and despite her apparent age, there was strength in every step. "I have waited my entire life for you, child. Just as my mother waited. And her mother before her, generation after generation, keeping the temple, keeping the secrets, keeping the faith that one day, the bloodline would resurface." "You knew," Damon said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "You knew Silver Flame still existed, and you said nothing?" "I knew nothing," Nyx corrected. "I had faith. There is a difference." Her white eyes fixed on him. "And you, young king, you have done well, leading her here, protecting her, but the hardest part is yet to come." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Instead of answering, Nyx moved to the altar and placed both hands on its surface. Immediately, the silver flame carved into the statue began to glow, not like firelight, like moonlight, cold and bright, and absolutely mesmerizing. "Place your hand here," Nyx commanded, gesturing to a smooth indentation in the altar's surface. "If you are who I believe you are, the temple will recognize you." Sarah looked at Damon. He nodded once, his expression fierce and protective. "I'm right here, whatever happens." Taking a shaking breath, Sarah stepped forward and placed her palm in the indentation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. Light exploded from the altar, pure silver light that shot through Sarah's hand and up her arm and into her chest like liquid lightning. She tried to scream but couldn't make a sound. The light spread through her entire body, filling every vein, every cell, every atom of her being. And then she saw visions, memories that weren't hers. A woman with silver eyes standing before an army, flames dancing in her palms, children being torn from their mother's arms, dragged away to be executed. A great burning wolves screaming as silver fire consumed them from the inside out. A baby hidden in the wilderness, passed from family to family, generation to generation, her power locked away, her bloodline obscured. Until a girl in a forest at age 7, screaming in pain and rage. A girl's mother, face twisted with terror, whispering, "Bury it. Bury it deep. They can never know." That girl growing up weak and broken, her power turning inward, consuming her from the inside because it had nowhere else to go. That girl standing in a ceremony circle, chosen by a king who could somehow see past the poison to the truth beneath. That girl, Sarah gasped as the visions released her. She collapsed, but Damon caught her before she hit the ground. The silver light had spread throughout the entire temple now, symbols blazing on every wall, the statue's flame burning bright enough to rival the sunday. "By the goddess," Nyx whispered, falling to her knees. "It's true. You are the last flame. The prophecy is real." Sarah could barely breathe. Her entire body felt like it was vibrating at a frequency just below pain. What was that?" "Your history," Nyx said reverently. "The temple showed you where you came from, who you are, and what you're meant to become. The prophecy said she'll either save us or burn the world." Damon said tightly, still holding Sarah against his chest. Which is it? Nyx's white eyes turned to him, and for the first time, something like pity crossed her ancient face. That, young king, depends entirely on what happens next. On who stands with her, on whether the kingdom accepts her or tries to destroy her. She paused. On whether she learns to control the fire, or lets it control her. Sarah felt something stirring deep in her chest, deeper than her wolf, deeper than her consciousness. Something vast and powerful and absolutely terrifying. It had been sleeping her whole life, locked away behind walls of poison and fear. But now, it was waking up. And as silver flame flickered briefly across her fingertips before vanishing, Sarah realized with absolute certainty, everything was about to change. The council can never know about this, Damon said, his voice hard. If they find out, they already know. Both of them froze. Nyx's expression had gone grim. How? Sarah whispered. Because someone at your ritual recognized what happened when your power flared. Someone who's been searching for your bloodline for decades. Someone who wants to finish what the false council started 200 years ago. Nyx moved closer, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. And they're coming, today, with an army, to kill you before your power fully awakens. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Damon's arms tightened around Sarah, protective and possessive. Let them come. They'll have to go through me first. They'll go through your entire kingdom first, Nyx said quietly. This isn't just about her anymore, Your Majesty. This is about war. This is about whether the old ways return, or whether the corruption continues. And you. She looked at Sarah with those terrible white eyes. You are the spark that will either light the way to freedom, or burn everything to the ground. Sarah looked down at her hands. They looked normal. Human. Harmless. But she could feel it now, the power coiled inside her like a sleeping dragon. And she knew, with a certainty that terrified her, that Nyx was right. She was either their salvation or their destruction, and she had no idea which it would be. Chapter 5. They heard the war horns before they saw the army. The sound echoed across the mountains, deep, resonant, threatening. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Beside her, Damon's entire body went rigid, his alpha instincts snapping into place like armor. How many? He asked Nyx, his voice deadly calm. The old priestess had moved to the temple entrance, her blind eyes somehow seeing far more than should be possible. 200. Maybe more. They've brought the elite guard, the council's personal executioners. Her face was grave. And they've brought him. Who? Sarah demanded, moving to stand beside Damon despite her trembling legs. High Chancellor Victor. Nyx's voice dripped with disgust. The most corrupt member of the council. The one who's been searching for any surviving silver flames for 40 years. He was just a young warrior during the purge, but he learned to love the killing, to crave it. Damon's jaw clenched. Victor's been my enemy since I took the throne. He wanted to rule through a puppet king, thought I'd be easy to control. A dangerous smile curved his lips. He was wrong. He's not here for you, Nyx said quietly. Not primarily. He's here for her. And he'll burn down your entire kingdom to get to her if he has to. Sarah's wolf was snarling inside her mind. No longer the weak, whimpering creature she'd always known. This wolf was fierce, protective, ready to fight. Let me out, her wolf growled. Let me show them what we really are. But Sarah was terrified. She'd never been strong in wolf form, never been a fighter. How could she possibly? Sarah. Damon's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. I know you're scared. I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to trust yourself. Can you do that? I don't know how to fight, she whispered. You don't have to fight, not yet. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You just have to survive. And I will make damn sure you do. The war horns sounded again, closer now. Nyx moved between them, her ancient hands surprisingly strong as she gripped Sarah's shoulders. Child, listen carefully. Your power is awake, but it's unstable, untrained. If you try to use it now, you could destroy everyone, including yourself. Her white eyes bored into Sarah's. But there is something you can do. Something that might buy you time. What? The temple wards. They're ancient, built by the first silver flames to protect this sacred ground. Only someone of the bloodline can activate them. If you can channel enough power into the altar, you can create a barrier that will hold even Victor's army back for a while. How long is a while? Damon asked sharply. Hours. Maybe a day if she's strong enough. Nyx released Sarah and stepped back. But it will drain her, possibly kill her if the power overwhelms her. No. Damon's voice was absolute. Find another way. There is no other way. Nyx's voice cracked with urgency. They're coming up the mountain now. In minutes, they'll be at the gates. If we don't activate the wards, I'll do it, Sarah said. Both of them turned to stare at her. Sarah, no. Damon started. What choice do we have? She was surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. If I don't, they kill all of us right now. If I do, we at least have time to plan, to figure out what to do next. She met his eyes, saw the protest there, the fear. I'm not that weak girl anymore, Damon. The poison's wearing off, my power's waking up. Maybe it's time I stopped running from what I am. Something shifted in his expression. Pride mixed with terror, mixed with something that looked dangerously close to love. Then I'm staying with you, he said. Whatever happens. No. Nyx's voice was sharp. If you're here when she channels the power, the temple will bind you together. The mate bond will forge whether you're ready or not. And if she loses control, if the power consumes her, it will consume you too. Damon's smile was feral. Good, Your Majesty. I said I'm staying. His hand found Sarah's, their fingers intertwining. She's mine. I claimed her. And I don't abandon what's mine. Sarah's heart cracked open. No one had ever chosen her. Not really. Not when it cost them something. But Damon was standing here, willing to risk everything. For her. The war horns sounded a third time. So close now. Sarah could hear shouting, the thunder of feet on stone paths. Now, Nyx commanded. Both of you, to the altar, now. They ran. Sarah placed both hands on the altar, and immediately she felt the power surge beneath her palms. It was like touching lightning, painful and exhilarating, and absolutely terrifying. Damon's hands covered hers, his larger palms warm and steady. I've got you, he murmured. Whatever happens, I've got you. Close your eyes, Nyx instructed, already beginning to chant in the old language. Reach for your power, don't fight it, don't try to control it, just let it flow. Sarah closed her eyes and reached inward. At first, there was nothing. Just darkness and the frantic beating of her heart. But then there, deep in her chest, deeper than her wolf, deeper than anything she'd ever known, a spark, a flame, silver and bright and beautiful. Hello, it whispered. I've been waiting for you. Sarah reached for it. The moment she touched that flame, the world exploded. Power poured out of her like a tidal wave, silver light that shot from her hands into the altar, spreading across the floor in intricate patterns that matched the symbols on the walls. The statue behind them blazed to life, the carved flame becoming real fire that didn't burn, filling the entire temple with light so bright it hurt to see. And Sarah felt everything. She felt the temple awakening after centuries of dormancy, felt the ancient wards rising from the stone like sleeping giants stretching after a long rest, felt the mountain itself responding to her call, recognizing her blood, her power, her right to command it. But she also felt the darkness approaching, 200 wolves climbing the mountain path, and at their head, a man whose mind was twisted with hatred and ambition, and a hunger for power that made her sick to sense. Victor. She could feel his thoughts like oil slicking across her consciousness, his absolute certainty that he would kill her, his pleasure at the thought of watching her burn. Never, her power whispered. Never, again. The light intensified. Sarah screamed not in pain, but in release. Every year of being told she was weak, every moment of being dismissed and pitied and shamed, it all burned away in that silver fire. And what emerged was pure power. Raw and ancient, and absolutely uncontainable. Sarah! Damon's voice cut through the chaos. Stay with me. Don't let it take you. His hands tightened over hers, and suddenly, she felt him. Really felt him. Their souls touching, recognizing, binding together like they'd been made from the same star. The mate bond snapped into place with a force that would have knocked her over if she wasn't already being held up by his strength. Mine, something primal in her growled. Mine, his wolf answered. The power found its focus. Instead of exploding outward in chaos, it channeled through their bond, through their joined hands, into the altar. The wards rose like a wall of pure silver light, encasing the entire temple in a dome of protective magic. Just in time, Victor's army reached the gates. Sarah opened her eyes to see them through the translucent barrier, hundreds of warriors in black armor, weapons drawn, faces twisted with aggression. And at their front, a man who looked like death itself, tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a smile that belonged on a corpse. "So," Victor called out, his voice magically amplified to echo through the barrier. The rumors were true. A silver flame lives. His dead eyes fixed on Sarah. "Hello, little spark. I've been looking for you for a very long time." "You can't have her," Damon snarled, stepping in front of Sarah protectively. Victor laughed a sound like bones breaking. "Oh, young king, still playing hero? How noble. How pointless." He gestured to the army behind him. "I have 200 trained killers. You have what? A broken girl and an old priestess?" His smile widened. "When these wards fall, and they will fall, I'm going to drag her down this mountain and burn her alive in the capital square. Just like we burned all the others." Rage flooded through Sarah. Not fear. Not anymore. Rage. "You murdered children," she heard herself say, her voice ringing with power. "You slaughtered innocent families. You tried to extinguish the goddess's blessing because you were afraid of it." "Afraid?" Victor's expression twisted. "We weren't afraid, little flame. We were smart. Your kind was too powerful. Too dangerous. You could control us with a thought, kill us with a word. What alpha would allow that kind of threat to exist? Ones who aren't cowards," Damon spat. Victor's eyes narrowed. "Call me what you like, boy. In 24 hours, when her power runs out and those wards collapse, I'll show you exactly what I am." He turned his gaze back to Sarah, and the hatred in his eyes was palpable. "Sleep well tonight, Silver Flame. It's the last sleep you'll ever have. Tomorrow, you burn." He raised his hand, and the army began to set up camp, right outside the barrier, surrounding them, trapping them. Sarah's legs gave out. She collapsed, but Damon caught her, cradling her against his chest. The power was still coursing through her, but it was draining her too. She could feel her life force being pulled into the wards, sustaining them. "How long?" Damon asked Nyx urgently. The old priestess looked haggard. 20 hours. Maybe 24 if she's stronger than I think. But no more. And then? And then the wards fall. Victor attacks. And unless you can get reinforcements here, before that happens. She didn't need to finish the sentence. They were going to die. Sarah looked up at Damon, saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. But she also saw something else. Determination, defiance, and that dangerous emotion she was starting to recognize. "I won't let them take you," he said fiercely. "I don't care what I have to do, who I have to call, what I have to sacrifice. You're mine, Sarah, and I protect what's mine." Despite everything the army outside, the power draining her life, the certainty of the coming battle, Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. Hope. Maybe they wouldn't survive this. Maybe Victor would break through and finish what the false council started 200 years ago. But if she was going to die, at least she'd die knowing what it felt like to be chosen. To be protected. To be loved, her wolf whispered. Sarah closed her eyes and let Damon hold her as the sun set over the mountains and the army of their enemies made camp at their doorstep. Tomorrow would bring war. Tonight she had this moment, this man, this feeling of being worth fighting for. And somehow, that made everything else bearable. Chapter 6. Night fell over the temple like a velvet shroud. Nyx had retreated to the inner chambers to send urgent messages through magical means calling for help from allies Sarah didn't know existed. Outside the silver barrier, Victor's army had built fires that ringed the temple like a crown of threat. Every so often, one of them would test the wards with a weapon or a pulse of dark magic, and Sarah would feel it like a distant ache in her bones. She sat near the altar, exhausted but unable to sleep, staring at her hands. They looked normal now. No silver light, no visible power, just the hands of a girl who'd been nobody her entire life, and was now somehow the most hunted creature in the kingdom. "You need to eat something." Sarah looked up to find Damon approaching with what looked like bread and dried meat from supplies Nyx must have kept hidden in the temple. He settled beside her close enough that she could feel his warmth but not quite touching. "I'm not hungry," she said quietly. "You're maintaining a magical barrier that's protecting all our lives. You need to eat." His voice was gentle but firm. When she didn't move, he tore off a piece of bread and held it to her lips. "Please." The intimacy of the gesture of being fed by him made her chest tight. She accepted the bread, and the moment it touched her tongue, she realized she was starving. They ate in silence for a while, passing food back and forth, and Sarah became hyper-aware of every accidental brush of fingers. Every moment their eyes met, the mate bond hummed between them like a living thing. She could feel him now, his emotions, his presence, the steady strength of him anchoring her to reality. "Can you feel it too?" she asked softly. "The bond." Damon's eyes darkened. "Every second. Your fear, your exhaustion, your determination." He paused. "Your doubt about whether you can trust me." Sarah's breath caught. "I do trust you. You've done nothing but protect me since. But you're wondering if it's real." He interrupted gently. "If what I feel is genuine or just the mate bond forcing an attraction that wouldn't exist otherwise." The accuracy of his words made her flinch. "How did you—" "Because I'm wondering the same thing." His admission was raw, honest. He turned to face her fully, gold eyes reflecting the firelight. "I told you I'd been watching you for 3 months. That's true. I was drawn to you before I ever knew about silver flames or prophecies or any of this. But now? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Now the bond is so strong I can barely think straight. And I keep asking myself, would I feel this way if fate hadn't decided we were mates?" Sarah's heart was pounding. "And what answer do you come to?" "The same one every time." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face. "Yes. Absolutely yes. Because the mate bond doesn't create feelings, Sarah. It amplifies what's already there. And what I feel for you." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "It terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've only known you for 1 day, and I would already burn down my entire kingdom to keep you safe. Because when I look at you, I don't see a weapon, or a prophecy, or a bloodline. I see a woman who's been fighting her entire life just to exist, and I want to give you a world where you never have to fight alone again." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Because I'm falling in love with you, and I have no idea if we'll even survive tomorrow to see where that leads." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. No one had ever spoken to her like this, like she was precious, like she was wanted for who she was, not what she could offer. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not just of Victor or the army or my power. I'm scared of this. Of you. Of how much I want to believe that someone like you could actually want someone like me." "Someone like you?" Damon's expression turned fierce. "Sarah, you're the strongest person I've ever met. You've survived years of being poisoned by your own family. You've endured shame and rejection, and still managed to stay kind, to stay compassionate, to stay you." His forehead pressed against hers. "I don't want you despite your supposed weakness. I want you because you turned that weakness into a different kind of strength, the kind that actually matters." "Damon?" Her voice broke. "Tell me your worst fear," he said suddenly. "Not about tomorrow, about us. What are you most afraid of when it comes to you and me?" The question caught her off guard, but maybe it was the mate bond, or the exhaustion, or the simple fact that she was tired of hiding the truth spilled out. "I'm afraid that when my power fully awakens, I'll become someone you can't love, someone dangerous and frightening and wrong." She swallowed hard. "The prophecy says I might burn the world. What if that includes burning you?" What if being with me destroys you? Damon was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her. He laughed. Not cruelly warmly, like she'd said something absurd and endearing. Sarah, I'm an alpha king. I've been fighting wars since I was 16. I've made decisions that got good people killed. I've compromised my morals for political gain. I've done things in the name of peace that haunt me every night. His eyes bored into hers. You think you're the dangerous one? I'm the one you should be afraid of. I'm not afraid of you. Exactly. His smile was soft and sad and beautiful. So maybe we're both damaged, both dangerous, both carrying power that could destroy everything we touch. He pulled her closer, until there was no space between them. Or maybe we're exactly what each other needs. Someone who understands what it's like to be feared for what we are, instead of loved for who we are. Sarah's hand came up to rest over his heart. She could feel it beating strong and steady and real. Who are you, Damon? Without the crown, without the title. Who are you really? He closed his eyes, like the question hurt. When he opened them again, the vulnerability there nearly broke her. I'm lonely, he whispered. I've been lonely for 10 years. Surrounded by thousands of people, and completely alone. I'm tired of making decisions that only benefit the kingdom, while slowly killing who I used to be. I'm angry at a system that rewards corruption and punishes honor. And I'm desperate, absolutely desperate for one thing in my life to be real, to be mine, to be chosen, instead of forced. I choose you, Sarah said before she could stop herself. I don't know if we'll survive tomorrow. I don't know if I can control my power or if I'll become the monster everyone fears. But right now, in this moment, I choose you. Something shattered in Damon's expression. He pulled her into his lap, arms wrapping around her like he was trying to fuse them together. Sarah melted into his embrace, her face buried in his neck, breathing in that pine and smoke scent that her wolf recognized as home. Tell me something no one else knows, he murmured against her hair. Something real. Sarah thought for a moment, then spoke quietly into the darkness. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I sing. Old songs my grandmother taught me before she died. And for just those few minutes, I feel powerful, like my voice can change the world. She laughed softly. Stupid, right? Sing for me. She pulled back to look at him. What? Right now. Sing for me, please. His eyes were intense. I want to hear what you sound like when you feel powerful. Sarah's heart was racing. She'd never sung for anyone, not since her grandmother. But Damon was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, and she found she couldn't refuse him. She took a shaking breath and began to sing. It was an old song older than memory, a lullaby in the ancient language about the moon and the wolves and the eternal dance between light and dark. Her voice was soft at first, tentative, but as the words flowed, something inside her loosened. Her voice grew stronger, clearer, filled with a resonance that seemed to make the very air vibrate. The temple responded. The symbols on the walls began to glow softly. The altar hummed. Even the barrier outside brightened, pulsing in time with her voice. And Damon was staring at her like she'd hung the stars. When the last note faded, silence filled the temple. Then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, just a brush of lips, a question. But when Sarah gasped and leaned into him, it deepened. His hand tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his shoulders. The mate bond flared between them like lightning. And suddenly Sarah understood what it meant to be consumed by another person. This wasn't just attraction. This was recognition, soul deep and absolute. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon rested his forehead against hers. We're going to survive tomorrow, he said fiercely. And the day after. And the day after that. Because I refuse to lose you before I've had the chance to hear you sing 1,000 more songs. Before I've had the chance to learn every single thing that makes you smile. Before I've had the chance to spend a lifetime proving that choosing you was the best decision I ever made. Sarah's eyes burned with tears. What if I can't control it? The power? Then I'll help you. We'll figure it out together. His hand cupped her face. You're not alone anymore, Sarah. Whatever comes, silver flame, prophecy, war, all of it, you don't face it alone. Do you understand me? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Say it, he commanded gently. Say you understand. I understand. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm not alone. Never again. He pulled her back into his arms, and they sat like that wrapped around each other. The mate bond singing between them. The army of their enemies camped at their doorstep. Sarah knew they should be planning. Strategizing. Preparing for the battle that would come when the wards fell. But right now, she just wanted to memorize this moment. The feeling of being held, of being chosen, of being loved, because that's what this was. Even if neither of them had said the word yet, she could feel it in every touch, every breath, every beat of his heart against hers. Outside, one of Victor's soldiers shouted something cruel. The army laughed. The fires burned brighter. But inside the temple, wrapped in Damon's arms, Sarah finally understood what her grandmother had meant when she'd said the old songs had power. Because in this moment, exhausted and terrified and facing almost certain death, she felt more powerful than she'd ever felt in her life. Not because of silver flames or prophecies or magic, but because she was loved. And that, she was beginning to realize, was the most dangerous power of all. Chapter 7. Dawn came too quickly. Sarah woke in Damon's arms, her body stiff from sleeping on the temple floor despite the furs Nyx had provided. For one blissful moment, she forgot where they were, forgot about the army outside, forgot about everything except the warmth of his chest against her cheek and the steady rhythm of his breathing. Then she heard the voices. Don't care what the old priestess says. The king has made his choice clear, and it's an insult to every noble family in the kingdom. Sarah's eyes snapped open. She recognized that voice. Lydia Ashcroft. Damon was already awake, his body tense beneath her. Stay here, he murmured, carefully disentangling himself and standing. But Sarah followed him anyway, moving to the temple entrance where Nyx stood arguing with a group of figures on the other side of the barrier. Not Victor's soldiers, these were different, dressed in the formal robes of the council. And at their head stood Lydia, her perfect face twisted with indignation, flanked by 3 council members Sarah recognized from the ritual ceremony. What's going on? Damon demanded. Councillor Aldrich, an elderly wolf with more ambition than honor, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we've come to negotiate a peaceful resolution. Peaceful? Damon's laugh was harsh. There's an army outside waiting to murder an innocent woman. Where's the peace in that? Innocent? Lydia's voice dripped with venom. She's an abomination, a silver flame. They were hunted to extinction for a reason they're too dangerous to exist. Careful, Lydia. Damon's voice dropped to a lethal purr. You're speaking about my mate. The word mate sent visible shockwaves through the council members. Aldrich's eyes widened. The others exchanged alarmed glances. That bond isn't legitimate, another councillor protested. The ritual was never completed. She fell asleep, an obvious sign of the goddess's disapproval. She was poisoned, Damon snarled, by someone in that ceremony. Someone who wanted to prevent exactly what happened, me choosing her. Prove it, Lydia challenged. You have no evidence, just the word of a weak wolf who's probably fabricated this entire story to— I have the chalice, Nyx interrupted coldly, and my analysis confirmed shadowroot extract. Someone attempted to incapacitate Miss Moonvale during the most sacred ceremony in our culture. Silence. Then Aldrich cleared his throat, attempting to regain control. Be that as it may, Your Majesty, the situation has escalated beyond a simple matter of ritual propriety. High Chancellor Victor has made his position clear. The girl must be handed over for trial. If she's truly innocent, she has nothing to fear from council justice. Council justice? Sarah found her voice, stepping forward despite Damon's protective arm. You mean the same justice that slaughtered hundreds of innocent wolves 200 years ago? Children, families, people whose only crime was being born with a gift from the goddess herself? Aldrich's expression didn't change. The purge was a necessary action taken by our forefathers to protect the stability of— It was genocide. Sarah spat. The silver in her eyes flared, and several council members flinched back. Don't dress it up in pretty words. You murdered people because you were afraid of them, because you couldn't control them, and that fear was justified. Lydia shrieked. "You've been here less than a day, and look what you've done. You've seduced the king, activated forbidden temple magic, and turned him against his own council. This is exactly why your kind was eliminated." "My kind?" Sarah's power was rising now, responding to her anger. The barrier pulsed with silver light. "My kind helped build this kingdom, protected it, healed the sick, and blessed the crops, and guided leaders with wisdom from the goddess herself. But you couldn't stand that, could you? Couldn't stand that someone might have power you couldn't steal or control." "Enough!" Aldrich's voice cracked like a whip. He turned to Damon, his expression calculating. "Your Majesty, I understand the mate bond is compelling, but you must see reason. The girl is a threat. If you persist in protecting her, you'll tear the kingdom apart. Civil war, brother against brother. Is one woman, one wolf you've known for barely a day worth that price?" Sarah felt Damon's hesitation through the bond. Just a flicker. Just a moment of doubt, as the weight of Aldrich's words sank in. The responsibility of a king, the cost of choosing personal desire over political stability. Her heart cracked. "He's right," she heard herself say. "Damon, he's right. I'm not worth a civil war." "Sarah," Damon turned to her, anguish in his eyes. "Listen to her," Lydia said quickly, sensing victory. "At least she has more sense than you do. Give her to Victor. Let him do what needs to be done. The kingdom can return to normal. You can choose a proper mate from a respectable bloodline. And what?" Sarah asked quietly. "Victor burns me alive in the capital square? Makes an example of me? Ensures that everyone knows what happens to silver flames who dare to survive?" Lydia's smile was cruel. "Exactly." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah looked at the council members, at their calculating eyes and political masks. Then, at Lydia, whose hatred was so pure it was almost beautiful in its honesty. These were the people who would shape Damon's reign, who would advise him, influence him, control him if he let them, and she was the obstacle they needed to remove. "There's another option," Aldrich said smoothly. "You lower the barrier, you come with us peacefully, and in exchange, we guarantee the king's safety. No charges of treason for harboring a silver flame, no political consequences. He can claim he was deceived, that he didn't know what you were. You want me to betray him," Sarah said flatly. "We want you to save him," Aldrich corrected. "From himself, from this infatuation that's clouding his judgment. Surely you care enough about him to want what's best for his kingdom?" Damon's hand gripped her arm. "Don't listen to them. They're manipulating. Am I wrong?" Sarah turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "If I stay, if you protect me, what happens to your kingdom? To the people who depend on you? To the stability you've fought 10 years to build?" "I don't care," he said fiercely. "None of that matters if—" "It has to matter." Tears burned her eyes. "You're a king, Damon. You don't have the luxury of choosing personal happiness over the greater good. That's what makes you different from them. That's what makes you worthy of the crown." She could feel his pain through the bond, sharp as a blade, but she could also feel his duty, his responsibility, the weight of thousands of lives depending on his decisions. "Sarah, please." "Your Majesty." Nyx's voice cut through the tension. The old priestess stood near the altar, her expression grave. "I need to speak with you. Now, privately." Damon's jaw clenched, but he nodded. As he moved toward Nyx, Sarah felt the physical distance like a severing. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold together as the council members watched her with predatory satisfaction. "Smart choice, girl," Aldrich said. "Perhaps you're not as foolish as we thought. She's still going to die," Lydia added cheerfully. "But at least she'll die knowing she did one decent thing in her pathetic life." Sarah didn't respond. She was watching Damon and Nyx, seeing his face go pale as the priestess whispered urgently, seeing his eyes widen, his body go rigid with shock. Then he turned to look at Sarah, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. It wasn't love. It wasn't protectiveness. It was fear. Nyx spoke louder now, her voice carrying across the temple. I've just received word from my contacts in the capital. Your Majesty, Sarah's family has issued a statement. They're claiming she coerced you using forbidden silver flame magic, that she's been deceiving the kingdom about her bloodline, and they're demanding her immediate execution to restore honor to the Moonvale name. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Her own family, her own blood. They also revealed something else. Nyx continued, her white eyes fixed on Sarah with terrible pity. The reason they've been poisoning her. It wasn't just to hide her power. She paused. Sarah's mother is Victor's sister. Her father married into the family as part of a pact to watch over any potential silver flame children and ensure they never awakened. Sarah wasn't being protected. She was being contained. A weapon they planned to use when the time was right. The temple spun. Sarah's knees buckled, but she caught herself against a pillar. No. That couldn't be true. Her mother had warned her, had protected her, had been Victor's spy all along. It gets worse, Nyx said quietly. Victor has offered the kingdom a deal. If Damon hands over Sarah and renounces any claim to her as his mate, Victor will support his reign and end his attempts to undermine the throne. But if Damon continues to protect her, she swallowed hard. Victor has enough supporters in the military to stage a coup. Half the kingdom's forces will turn against you, Your Majesty. The resulting civil war would kill thousands. Sarah looked at Damon through blurring tears, saw the calculation in his eyes, the terrible weight of responsibility, the impossible choice. Save her, or save his kingdom. One woman, or thousands of lives. Damon, she whispered. It's okay. I understand. Sarah, I said I understand. She straightened, forcing steel into her spine. You're a king. You make the hard choices. And I'm not worth a war. She tried to smile, but it felt like her face was cracking. Lower the barrier. Give them what they want. Save your people. For a long moment, Damon just stared at her. The mate bond stretched between them, taut and screaming. She could feel everything he was feeling, the agony, the rage, the crushing weight of duty versus desire. Then he turned away from her and walked toward the altar to lower the wards. Something inside Sarah shattered, not her heart that was too small a word. Her entire soul cracked open, spilling grief and betrayal, and a pain so profound she couldn't even scream. He was choosing the kingdom. As he should. As any good king would. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. The barrier began to flicker as Damon's hands touched the altar. Outside, Victor's army surged forward, weapons ready. Aldrich and the council members smiled with satisfaction. Lydia laughed a high, triumphant sound. And deep inside Sarah's chest, where her power had been sleeping, something else woke up. Not the gentle silver flame she'd felt before. This was rage. Pure and ancient and absolutely uncontainable. Her eyes blazed silver. The symbols on her skin that had been dormant her whole life suddenly burned to the surface. Ancient marks covering her arms, her neck, her face in patterns of moonlight and prophecy. No, she whispered. The entire temple shook. I am not your sacrifice. Ascodively, silver fire exploded from her body, so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. The barrier didn't just hold, it expanded, pulsing with power that made Victor's army scramble backward in terror, and Sarah felt it, the full awakening of what she truly was. The last silver flame, the prophecy made flesh, and she was done being weak. Chapter 8. The transformation was agony and ecstasy twisted together. Sarah felt every cell in her body rewriting itself, unlocking power that had been buried for 23 years. The silver marks on her skin burned like brands. Ancient words in a language older than kingdoms, spelling out her true name. Not Sarah Moonvale, that was the name of the girl they'd tried to make her. This was who she really was. The temple responded to her awakening, like it had been waiting centuries for this exact moment. The walls blazed with light. The altar sang. The statue of the first silver flame cracked down the middle, and from within stepped something impossible. A figure made of pure silver fire, no longer stone but spirit, the ancient ancestor herself manifesting through Sarah's power. Finally, the spirit whispered, her voice echoing in Sarah's mind. and through the temple simultaneously. Finally, you remember. Outside, Victor's army had fallen back, shields raised against the brilliant light. But Victor himself stood firm, his dead eyes fixed on Sarah, with a mixture of hatred and hunger. "There she is," he breathed. "The weapon I've been searching for. The power I've been promised." "Promised?" Sarah's voice rang out, amplified by the temple's magic. "By who?" "By your mother." Victor's smile was grotesque. "My dear sister who married into the Moonveil Pack, specifically to watch over the bloodline. To wait for a silver flame to be born. To raise it weak and docile and controllable." His eyes gleamed. "We were going to use you, little flame. Train you to serve the council. To enforce our will across the kingdom. But you had to go and catch the king's attention. Had to ruin everything by being seen." Sarah's power surged, rage fueling the flames. "You were going to enslave me. We were going to give you purpose." Victor snarled. "Better than burning you like the others. We learned from our mistakes 200 years ago. Silver flames are too valuable to simply destroy. But they must be controlled. Must be broken and rebuilt into something useful. I am not a weapon." Silver fire danced along Sarah's arms, her fingertips, her hair. She looked at the council members, at Lydia's terrified face, at Aldrich's calculating expression. "None of you get to decide what I am. Not anymore." Then she turned to Damon. He stood frozen at the altar, his hand still touching the stone, his face a mask of anguish. Through the bond, she felt everything: his shame at having almost given her up, his terror at what she was becoming, his desperate hope that she wouldn't hate him forever. "Did you mean it?" she asked quietly. "When you said you'd choose me over the kingdom?" "Sarah." His voice cracked. "Answer me." "No." The word was torn from him. "I didn't mean it. I can't mean it. I'm a king. I have responsibilities. Duties. Thousands of lives depending on my decisions." He looked at her with eyes full of tears. "But God's help me. I wanted to mean it. I wanted to be selfish enough to burn the world for you." The honesty of it, the raw, painful honesty, made Sarah's breath catch. "You're a good king," she said softly. "That's why I fell for you. Not in spite of your sense of duty, but because of it." She smiled, and it was sad and fierce and absolutely certain. "But I'm not going to let you sacrifice yourself for me, or sacrifice me for them." "What are you going to do?" Nyx asked, approaching carefully. Sarah looked at the old priestess, at the spirit of the first silver flame hovering beside her, at the temple walls covered in prophecy and promise and power. "I'm going to rewrite the rules." She raised her hands, and silver fire poured from her palms like water. Not attacking, creating. The flames wove together in the air above the temple, forming shapes, symbols, a tapestry of pure magic that everyone could see. Images appeared in the fire. The past. The true history that had been buried and twisted and lied about. The original silver flames, not monsters, but healers, teachers, protectors. Women and men who had used their gifts to bless the land, to strengthen the packs, to commune directly with the moon goddess and bring her wisdom to the wolves. Then the corruption. Alphas who wanted power without accountability, who saw the silver flames as a threat to their authority, who whispered poison in the ears of the fearful and the ambitious. The purge. Not a necessary evil, a massacre born of greed and terror. Children burned alive, families torn apart, an entire bloodline nearly extinguished because they couldn't be controlled. And finally the lie. The story the council had told for 200 years. That silver flames were abominations. That the goddess herself had condemned them. That their extinction was divine will. All of it false. "You see?" Sarah's voice carried across the mountain. Every wolf in Victor's army was watching the images, their faces pale with shock. "You were lied to. All of you. The council didn't protect you from dangerous magic. They murdered anyone who might have questioned their corruption." "Enough!" Victor roared. "I don't care about ancient history. You're coming with me, one way or another." He gestured to his elite guard. "Take her. Kill anyone who gets in your way." The king included. The soldiers moved forward, but they were hesitant now. The images Sarah had shown them had planted seeds of doubt. You don't have to do this, Sarah called to them. You don't have to follow orders from a man who orchestrated genocide. Who would have enslaved me? Who would do the same to any of you if you became inconvenient? She's trying to manipulate you. Victor snarled. That's what silver flames do. They get inside your head. Control your thoughts. I'm not controlling anyone. Sarah's voice was calm, certain. I'm giving them the truth. What they do with it is their choice. She looked at each soldier in turn. Just like this is my choice. And I choose to stop running. To stop hiding. To stop letting corrupt men decide who lives and who dies based on fear. One soldier lowered his weapon. Then another. Then a dozen more. Victor's face contorted with rage. Traitors, all of you, I'll have you. You'll have nothing. Damon's voice cut across the mountain like a blade. He'd moved away from the altar, was standing at the temple entrance, his eyes blazing gold. As Alpha King, I'm formally removing you from the council, Victor. For conspiracy. For attempted murder. For, you have no authority over me. Victor laughed, but there was hysteria in it now. Half the kingdom supports me. The council stands with me. Then let them stand against me. Damon's power rolled out like a wave, pure alpha dominance that made even Victor stumble back. Because I stand with her. I stand with the truth, and I stand against anyone who thinks genocide can be justified by calling it politics. Through the bond, Sarah felt his decision crystallize. The moment he stopped being torn between duty and desire and realized they were the same thing. That protecting her was protecting the kingdom. That choosing love wasn't weakness, it was the strongest thing he'd ever do. Together? He asked, extending his hand to her across the distance. Sarah smiled real and bright, and full of hope. Together, their hands clasped, and the mate bond exploded into full power. Gold and silver light twined together, their souls merging, their strength multiplying. The temple shook with the force of it. The spirit of the first silver flame threw back her head and laughed with pure joy. Now, Sarah said, her voice resonating with divine authority, let me show you what a silver flame can really do. She released Damon's hand and stepped forward, her power building to a crescendo. The barrier around the temple dissolved, but not because it was falling. Because she didn't need it anymore. Victor saw his chance. He shifted a massive black wolf, all teeth and fury, and lunged at Sarah. He never reached her. Silver fire erupted from the ground, forming a wall between them. But it wasn't burning him. It was holding him, wrapping around his wolf form like chains of pure light, binding him in place. I'm not going to kill you, Sarah said quietly. That would make me exactly what you tried to turn me into, a weapon. A destroyer. She walked closer until she stood right in front of him, close enough to see the fear in his wolf eyes. Instead, I'm going to take your power, every ounce of authority you stole, every bit of corruption you spread. I'm going to cleanse it from this kingdom like poison from a wound. She placed her hand on his forehead, and silver light poured into him. Victor howled, not in pain, but in loss. The darkness that had twisted his soul for decades was being burned away, leaving only the broken, terrified wolf beneath. The man who'd convinced himself that murder was mercy, that control was kindness, that fear was the same as respect. When Sarah pulled her hand away, Victor collapsed, still alive, but powerless, just a wolf, no longer a monster. The elite guard stared in shock. Then, one by one, they knelt. Not in submission, in respect. In acknowledgement that they'd witnessed something miraculous, Sarah turned to the council members. Aldrich looked ready to run. Lydia was pale as death. I'm not your enemy, Sarah said. I never was. But I won't be your victim either, and I won't let you continue to rule through fear and lies. She looked at Damon. The kingdom needs change, real change. Are you ready for that? His smile was fierce and proud. With you by my side? I'm ready for anything. Nyx approached, tears streaming down her ancient face. You've done it, child. You've fulfilled the prophecy, not by burning the world, but by illuminating it. By choosing mercy over vengeance, love over hate. The spirit of the first silver flame shimmered beside Sarah, her hand resting on Sarah's shoulder like a blessing. "You are everything we hoped for," the spirit whispered. "Everything we died believing would one day return. The power is yours now, daughter. Use it well. Use it with wisdom. And never, ever, let them make you small again." Then the spirit faded, returning to the temple walls, to legend and memory and the eternal cycle of prophecy. Sarah stood in the center of it all, exhausted, powerful, transformed. The weak girl who'd fallen asleep at her own mating ritual was gone. In her place stood a silver flame, a queen, a force of nature that the kingdom would have to reckon with. And at her side stood Damon, his hand finding hers, their bond singing with certainty and strength and absolute unshakable love. The war wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, council members to replace, systems to rebuild, wolves who would resist change until their dying breath. But for the first time in her life, Sarah wasn't afraid, because she finally understood what power really was. It wasn't the ability to destroy. It was the courage to protect, to fight for what was right, even when the cost was everything. To stand up and say no more, and mean it with your whole soul. She was a silver flame, and she was done apologizing for it. Chapter 9. 3 days after the confrontation at the temple, Sarah stood on the balcony of the royal palace, watching the sun set over the kingdom that had tried to kill her. So much had changed. Victor was imprisoned, awaiting trial. Aldrich and 2 other council members had fled in the night cowards to the end. The remaining council had been dissolved, and Damon was rebuilding it from scratch with wolves who valued honor over power. But the kingdom itself was divided. Half the population saw Sarah as their salvation, a living miracle, proof that the goddess hadn't abandoned them. They came to the palace gates daily with offerings, with prayers, with tearful thanks for exposing the corruption that had poisoned their leadership for generations. The other half saw her as exactly what Victor had called her: an abomination, a threat, something that should have stayed buried. They whispered in the streets about unnatural power, about silver flames corrupting their king, about the old ways being best. Sarah could feel it through her awakened senses, the fear, the hope, the hatred, the love, all of it swirling through the kingdom like competing currents, pulling everything towards some inevitable confrontation. "You're thinking too loudly," Damon's voice came from behind her. She felt his arms wrap around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I can feel your anxiety through the bond." "Sorry." She leaned back into his warmth. "I'm just worried about what comes next." "What comes next is we get married," he said simply. "Properly this time, with a ceremony that doesn't involve poison or assassination attempts." Sarah laughed despite herself. "You make it sound so romantic." "It will be." He turned her to face him, and the love in his gold eyes still took her breath away. "You'll wear a dress that makes every wolf in the kingdom weep with envy. I'll probably cry during my vows. Nyx will officiate and make ominous pronouncements that no one understands. It'll be perfect." "Right. And then?" His expression grew serious. "And then we rebuild. Together. We create a kingdom where power isn't something to be hoarded and feared, but shared and celebrated. Where being different isn't a death sentence. Where someone like you, someone extraordinary, is protected, not persecuted." "That's a beautiful dream," Sarah whispered. "It's not a dream." His hand cupped her face. "It's a promise. Our promise." Sarah wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love and justice and mercy were enough to change an entire kingdom. But she'd seen the hatred in Lydia's eyes before the woman had disappeared into the night. Had felt the resentment of nobles who'd lost power and influence. Had heard the whispers about how she'd bewitched the king. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Choosing me? The mate bond gave you an excuse to walk away from all this mess. To say fate forced your hand. But you didn't. You chose me deliberately. And now your kingdom is fractured. Your council is in shambles. Half your nobles want you deposed." "Stop." Damon's voice was firm. "Sarah, look at me." He waited until her eyes met his. "I don't regret a single moment. Not one. You didn't fracture my kingdom. You exposed fractures that were always there. You didn't create the corruption, you revealed it. And you didn't force me to choose you. You gave me permission to be more than just a king. To be a man. To be whole. Tears blurred her vision. I'm scared I'm going to fail you. That my power will. Your power is part of you. And I love all of you. He pressed his forehead to hers. Even the parts that scare you. Even the parts you haven't figured out yet. All of you. Sarah. Always. Through the bond, she felt the absolute truth of his words. No hesitation, no doubt. Just certainty and love, and a commitment so deep it made her soul ache. I love you too, she whispered. Even though I probably shouldn't. Even though it's only been days. Even though loving you means accepting responsibility for an entire kingdom that's not sure it wants me. They'll learn. Damon interrupted gently. Give them time. Give yourself time. Rome wasn't built in a day. And neither is lasting change. A knock interrupted them. Nyx entered the balcony, her white eyes somehow conveying urgency despite their blindness. Your Majesties, she said formally. Then, softer, we have a problem. Sarah's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The kind that's been waiting 200 years to surface. Nyx's expression was grave. I've been searching through the temple archives. The prophecy about the silver flame returning? There's more. A second part that was hidden, deliberately obscured. Tell us, Damon commanded. Nyx took a breath. The prophecy doesn't end with her awakening. It says, when the silver flame burns again, she will unite or divide, heal or harm, save or destroy, but she will not stand alone. For where there is silver flame, shadow flame must follow. One cannot exist without the other. Light and dark, fire and ash, and when they meet, the world will tremble. Ice flooded Sarah's veins. Shadow flame? What does that mean? It means, Nyx said quietly, that you're not the only one who survived the purge. There's another bloodline, another power that's been sleeping, and your awakening has triggered theirs. Where? Sarah demanded. I don't know yet, but I can feel it, a disturbance in the magical currents, something dark rising to match your light, something that's been waiting for exactly this moment. Nyx's blind eyes fixed on Sarah with terrible certainty. You claimed your power, child. You became what you were meant to be, but in doing so you've awakened your opposite, your mirror, your enemy, Sarah finished numbly. Or ally, Nyx corrected. The prophecy is unclear. Shadow flames were the balance to silver flames, yin to yang, destruction to creation. The ancients believed both were necessary. That together, they maintained cosmic equilibrium. But if they were corrupted, Damon started. Then we face something worse than Victor, Nyx confirmed. Something with power equal to Sarah's, but twisted, broken, consumed by the same rage and pain and betrayal that could have consumed her if she'd made different choices. Sarah's mind was racing. Another flame-bearer, another survivor who'd been lied to, poisoned, hunted. Someone who might have embraced the darkness instead of the light, who might look at her and see not a sister in survival but a rival, a threat. When? She asked. Soon, Nyx said. Days, maybe weeks. But they're coming. I can feel them like a storm on the horizon. Silence fell over the balcony. Below them, the kingdom continued its evening routines, wolves returning home, shops closing, the normal rhythms of life. Completely unaware that another prophecy was unfolding, another power was rising, another confrontation was inevitable. Sarah looked at Damon, saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. They'd barely survived Victor, barely managed to hold the kingdom together, and now this? Maybe it's not an enemy, she said, trying to convince herself. Maybe the shadow flame will be reasonable. Maybe we can. Sarah. Damon's voice was gentle but realistic. Someone with that kind of power, hidden and suppressed like you were, who's just now awakening. They're going to be angry, confused, dangerous. Like I was. You chose mercy, he reminded her. Not everyone makes that choice. Sarah turned back to the sunset, watching the last rays of light fade into darkness. Somewhere out there, her opposite was waking up, learning what they were, deciding what to do with their power. Would they seek her out as an ally? As a teacher? Or would they come as a conqueror? The question hung unanswered in the twilight air. Whatever comes, Damon said, his hand finding hers. We face it together. Sarah squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from the bond that had saved her, that had helped her choose light over darkness, love over hate. Together, she agreed. But as the stars began to appear overhead, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything up until now had been preparation. A test. A beginning. The real challenge, the real choice was still coming. And when it arrived, Sarah would have to decide. Did she stand with her opposite? Did she fight them? Did she try to save them as Damon had saved her? Or did she do what Victor had failed to do, destroy a flame bearer before they could destroy everything else? The answers would come soon enough. For now, all she could do was hold on to Damon, trust in their bond, and pray that when the shadow flame finally revealed itself, she'd have the wisdom to make the right choice. Because the prophecy was clear: unite or divide, heal or harm, save or destroy. And the next decision she made would determine which path the kingdom and the world would walk. So tell me, would you have chosen mercy like Sarah did? Would you have stood by someone everyone feared? Would you have had the courage to embrace power when the world told you that power made you dangerous? Because here's the truth that Sarah learned on that temple mountain. We all have power. Maybe not silver flames or magical bloodlines, but power nonetheless. The power to choose kindness over cruelty, to stand with the marginalized instead of the comfortable, to fight for what's right even when it costs us everything. The question is, do you have the courage to use it? If Sarah's story has lit something inside you, if her journey from broken to powerful has touched that part of your soul that knows what it's like to be underestimated, then you belong here. Subscribe if you haven't. Because we don't just tell love stories, we tell transformation stories. Stories about ordinary people discovering their extraordinary power. Stories that remind you that you're not too broken, too weak, or too lost to become exactly who you were meant to be. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and join us for the next chapter, because Sarah's story isn't over. The shadow flame is coming. The real test is just beginning, and you're not going to want to miss what happens when light and dark finally collide. Welcome to the collection. Welcome to the pack. Welcome home. Chapter 10. The vision came to Sarah 3 nights later. She was standing in the royal bedchamber, wrapped in Damon's arms, finally feeling safe for the first time in days. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. His breathing was deep and even. Everything was peaceful. Then, the world tilted. Suddenly, she wasn't in the bedchamber anymore. She was standing in a field of ash. The sky above was the color of old bruises, purple and black and sickly green. And in the distance, walking toward her through the devastation, was a figure wreathed in black flames. Shadow flame. As the figure drew closer, Sarah's breath caught. It was a woman, young, maybe Sarah's age, with hair like midnight and eyes that burned with dark fire. She was beautiful and terrible, powerful and broken. And when she looked at Sarah, there was recognition in her gaze. "Sister," the woman said, her voice echoing across the wasteland. "Finally, I found you." "Who are you?" Sarah demanded. The woman smiled, and it was sad and fierce, and absolutely haunting. "I am what you could have been, what you should have been, what you will be if you're not careful." She gestured to the destruction around them. "This is our future, Silver Flame. This is what happens when we stop pretending to be what they want us to be." "I'm nothing like you," Sarah said, but even as she spoke, doubt crept in. "Aren't you?" The shadow flame woman tilted her head. "You were poisoned by your family, betrayed by those who should have protected you, told you were weak and broken and wrong your entire life. The only difference between us is that you found someone who chose you before the hatred could consume you completely." Her eyes darkened. "I wasn't so lucky. What happened to you?" "The same thing that almost happened to you. Except no one came to save me. No Alpha King saw my worth. No mate bond protected me from the Council's executioners." Her voice turned cold. "So I saved myself. By becoming exactly what they feared. By embracing the darkness instead of fighting it. By deciding that if they wanted a monster, I'd give them one. Horror flooded through Sarah. You're going to attack the kingdom, not attack. The woman's smile widened. Cleanse. Every wolf who participated in the purge, every descendant of the false council, every alpha who looked the other way while our kind was slaughtered, they all have a debt to pay, and I intend to collect. Killing them makes you no better than Victor. I'm not trying to be better than Victor. The shadow flame woman's eyes blazed. I'm trying to be feared enough that no one ever tries to hunt us again. That no silver flame or shadow flame or any wolf with gifts from the goddess has to live in hiding. In shame. In terror of being discovered and burned alive. There's another way, Sarah pleaded. We can change things peacefully, rebuild the council, show them that we're not threats. You still believe that? The woman laughed. But it was bitter. You still think you can convince them to accept us, to love us. How sweet, how naive. She stepped closer, and the heat from her dark flames made the air shimmer. But you'll learn, sister. When they turn on you, and they will turn on you, you'll understand. Love isn't enough. Mercy isn't enough. Only fear keeps monsters in check. And to them, we are the monsters. No. Sarah's silver flames flared in response. I won't let you destroy everything I've fought for. Everyone I've saved? The shadow flame woman's expression turned mocking. You think sparing Victor saved anyone? You think showing mercy to the council makes you a hero? She shook her head. All you did was delay the inevitable, because people like them don't change. Sarah, they don't learn. They just wait for their next opportunity to strike. You're wrong. Am I? The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. Then tell me, why can you still feel it? The hatred simmering in your kingdom. The nobles plotting your downfall. The wolves who would kill you tomorrow if they thought they could get away with it. Her smile turned knowing. You're powerful now, sister. But you're not safe. And neither is your precious Alpha King. Not while corruption still breathes. Not while the descendants of murderers still hold power. Fear shot through Sarah. If you touch Damon, I won't have to. The shadow flame woman started to fade, her form dissolving into smoke and ash. He'll die protecting you. They all do. That's what happens when you choose love over survival. When you let your heart make you weak. Love doesn't make me weak, Sarah screamed. It makes me strong. Then prove it. The woman was barely visible now, just a voice in the darkness. When I come for your kingdom, and I am coming, sister, show me this strength you claim. Show me that mercy is more powerful than vengeance. That love can triumph over hate. That you're more than just another flame waiting to burn out. Wait. Sarah reached out. What's your name? Please. But the woman was gone. The vision shattered like glass. Sarah gasped awake, her body drenched in sweat, her heart hammering. Damon was already awake beside her, his hand on her shoulder, his eyes wide with concern. Sarah, what happened? The bond went crazy. I felt your terror. She came to me, Sarah whispered. The shadow flame. In a vision. Damon. Her voice cracked. She's coming. Soon. And she's not coming to talk. She's coming to burn everything to the ground. Damon's expression turned grim. Then we'll be ready. You don't understand. Sarah grabbed his arms. She's me. She's what I would have been if you hadn't chosen me. If the mate bond hadn't saved me. She's been through everything I've been through, but she came out the other side broken and twisted and full of rage. Tears streamed down her face. How do I fight someone who's essentially fighting my own darkness? The same way you've fought everything else, Damon said firmly. With courage, with compassion, with the knowledge that you're not alone. He cupped her face. She didn't have anyone. But you have me. You have Nyx. You have allies who believe in you. That's the difference, Sarah. That's what makes you stronger than your darkness. Sarah wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love would be enough when the shadow flame finally arrived with her army of vengeance and ash. But deep in her soul, in that place where power and prophecy intertwined, she knew the truth. The real test hadn't been Victor, hadn't been the council, hadn't even been accepting her power. The real test was coming, and it would require her to face the one enemy she'd never learned to defeat, herself. 3 days later, In a kingdom far to the north, a woman with eyes like burning coal stood before an army of outcasts and exiles. "The silver flame has awakened," she announced, her voice carrying across the assembled warriors. "My sister in power, my mirror in pain." She smiled, and it was terrible to behold. She chose mercy. She chose love. She chose to believe that the wolves who hunted us could be redeemed. The army growled their disapproval. "But we know better, don't we?" The shadow flame woman raised her hands, and dark fire danced between her fingers. "We know that the only way to be safe is to be feared. That the only way to protect our kind is to eliminate the threat. That mercy is just another word for weakness." She turned toward the south, toward the kingdom, where Sarah slept in her alpha's arms, completely unaware of the storm that was gathering. "So we march," the shadow flame woman declared. "We march to meet my dear sister, to show her what real power looks like. To prove that love is a pretty fantasy, but fear," her flames blazed brighter, "fear is what keeps you alive." Behind her, the army roared their approval. Hundreds of wolves who'd been cast out, hunted, betrayed, all of them ready to follow their dark queen into war. "And when we're done," the woman whispered to herself, her words carried away on the wind toward the south, toward Sarah, toward the inevitable confrontation. "You'll thank me, sister. When I've burned away everything that makes you vulnerable, your love, your mercy, your foolish hope, you'll finally be free. Finally be powerful. Finally be what we were always meant to be." Her smile widened. "Monsters." The ground trembled. Not in the north where the shadow flame army gathered, but in the temple of first light, where Nyx stood alone in the darkness, her white eyes seeing what others could not. "It's begun," she whispered to the ancient stones. "The prophecy unfolds, light and dark, fire and ash, sister against sister." She placed her hand on the altar, and the symbols flared briefly, a warning, a blessing, a prayer to the moon goddess herself. "Guide them," Nyx murmured. "Both of them. Because if they destroy each other, the world burns. But if they unite," her voice caught with something like hope, "if they unite, we might finally see the dawn the prophecy promised. The age when flame-bearers protect instead of terrorize, when gifts are celebrated instead of feared. But which will it be?" The temple offered no answer, only silence, and the steady sound of an army marching south, getting closer, every day, every hour, every breath, until the moment when silver meets shadow, and the whole world trembles. The answer to that question, the moment of collision, the choice that will define kingdoms, is coming, but not today. Today, you're left with this: a girl who survived her own destruction, now facing the version of herself who didn't. An alpha king who chose love, now forced to defend it against an army of hate. And a prophecy that promises salvation or damnation, with no clear path between. This is where we leave Sarah Moonvale, the girl who fell asleep during her mating ritual and woke up powerful enough to shake the world. But her story? Oh, her story is far from over. It's only just beginning. Because the truth is, we all have shadow selves, parts of us that rage against the injustice, that want to burn it all down and start over, that whisper seductive lies about how much easier it would be if we just stopped being kind, stopped being merciful, stopped being soft. And every day, we choose. Do we feed the light, or embrace the dark? Do we believe love is worth fighting for, or accept that fear is all that matters? Sarah made her choice. The shadow flame made hers. What's yours? If you want to know what happens when these two forces collide, if you need to see whether love really can triumph over hate, if you're invested in Sarah and Damon's story, and you're not ready to let them go, then stay with us at Clarissa Romance Collections. Because this tale of flames and prophecy, and a girl who refused to stay broken, it's not ending, it's evolving, and you're going to want to be here when the shadow finally emerges from the darkness. When Sarah faces her greatest fear, when kingdoms fall and rise on the choices of two women who were told they were too dangerous to exist. This isn't goodbye. It's barely hello. Subscribe, stay, witness. Because the real story, the one that will haunt you long after the last word fades, is only just beginning. The shadow flame is coming.